Tonight on Friday Night Smackdown, we have the WWE Intercontinental Championship on the line as AJ Styles defends his Intercontinental Championship against Matt Riddle on Friday Night Smackdown on Fox. I'm assuming that this is going to be the main event. It's slightly surprising that it isn't on the Extreme Rules card this weekend, but by all accounts, from what I've heard and what I've read online, WWE are actually looking to sort of chop down that Extreme Rules card because they felt it was too bloated. They thought there was too many moving parts on that show, whether it was the Wyatt family swamp fight or whether it's a WWE Championship match, the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championship matches, all of that sort of stuff. The eye for an eye match. God, I almost forgot about that for a second there. How can I forget about someone getting their eye ripped out? Just that shows how much that is going on in the world of professional wrestling right now. That someone's eye getting ripped out as a finish went over my head. So that says quite a lot, doesn't it? But we'll focus on SmackDown tonight. So we've got the Intercontinental Championship match between AJ Styles and Matt Riddle. Like I mentioned, surprised it wasn't on Extreme Rules, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think having it on SmackDown means it will most likely get more time. Sometimes with these matches, while it could be a fantastic match, it's likely it could get lost in the shuffle with everything that is going on Sunday, given, like I mentioned, the eye for an eye, all the stipulations, possibly some title changes, the Wyatt swamp fight, all of that sort of stuff would probably overshadow a championship match between AJ Styles and Matt Riddle. I'm not necessarily surprised it's on the show. I would hope it does a good rating. The ratings for SmackDown haven't exactly been stellar recently. The ratings for WWE in general haven't been stellar recently, regardless of what they've been putting on. I know WWE, it looks to me, and this is just me speculating, but I would speculate that WWE are trying to keep Fox happy with some of these matches, whether it is having the Intercontinental Championship tournament all on the SmackDown on Fox, having the finals on Fox between AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan. What a match that was, by the way. AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan in the tournament final for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. One of the best matches of the year, without a shadow of a doubt. The only thing that probably hurt it was just the amount of ad breaks that we had during that show, during that match. My word. Imagine that was a pay-per-view match, and because it went, 30 minutes? Probably around 30 minutes if you include ads, maybe even longer. It's probably like 40 minutes, but the match itself probably was about 30 minutes. Imagine that was on a pay-per-view. Could you imagine? And that on a pay-per-view would have just been absolutely tremendous to watch. Back and forth action, great work. I would say it was probably better than their matches they had for the WWE Championship as well. Obviously, Daniel Bryan won the WWE Championship from AJ Styles, didn't he, in 2018 on SmackDown, and they had a couple of matches after that. Obviously, they had the match on SmackDown, they had a match at the Royal Rumble in 2019, but for me, the chemistry was never there. I don't know if that's just me, or I don't recall the matches being nowhere near as good as that Intercontinental Championship match, without a shadow of a doubt. So hopefully we don't have the same thing in this match. That's my concern with this Matt Riddle versus AJ Styles match. I worry that with what happened in that Intercontinental Championship match between Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles, that we might have just a ton of commercials. And if we have a ton of commercials, look, the match can still be great, and I'm not saying the match itself won't be great, but with the whole ton of commercials, it does take you out of it because it's so stop-start, and like sometimes with a TV show, a commercial can actually be a good thing sometimes with a TV show, especially like a real intense drama, right? You get to a bit, hit a break, and you're like, oh my god, I need to know what happens. What's going to happen after the break? It's not the case in WWE because even if you're the most casual fan, you know that when they say, let's go to the break, what's going to happen? You know when you come back, the match isn't going to be over. The match is going to be carrying on. So it's just annoying in professional wrestling when. It's just annoying when you have commercials in a match, especially a good match, and especially a match which is you're really enjoying, and it disrupts the flow of the match, and it takes you in, and it takes you out, and then it takes you in, then it takes you out. Basically, for me, as a fan, if I'm watching a good match, and there's an advert after an advert after an advert, for me as a fan, I have to get reinvested every single time we come back to the match, which is really, really difficult. That probably says why the AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan match was so good a few weeks ago on SmackDown for the Intercontinental Championship, because it got you reinvested, and then once you lost investment because of the commercial, you came back and it was just as good. The pacing didn't suffer because of it, and I don't know if that's because it was taped. Sometimes when it's live, obviously once it goes to commercial, they kind of do a few rest holds, they don't do anything spectacular because why would you? But I'm assuming when they tape this, they just did the 30 minutes straight. Don't worry about any of the spots. Don't worry about rest holds. Don't worry, okay, we're going to commercial now, blah, blah, blah. I would have hoped that they just taped it all in one and then they can splice it up, the commercials that way. That makes the most sense. And if anything, it probably helped the match in general if you had to deal with the commercials. I'd rather not have the commercials, but this is network television. Commercials are a thing. So I hope that's not the case with Matt Riddle and AJ Styles tonight. Of course, Matt Riddle and AJ Styles have faced before. They faced each other on Matt Riddle's debut on Friday Night Smackdown a few weeks ago. AJ Styles was having his Intercontinental Championship celebration. He was interrupted by Matt Riddle. And they had a match there, and Matt Riddle won via a little bit of distraction by Daniel Bryan with AJ Styles. So he gets his championship match. I don't expect Matt Riddle, of course, to win the Intercontinental Championship tonight. Far from it. I just think that's very unlikely to happen. I would be stunned if, well, for several reasons. I'd be stunned if this soon into the AJ Styles Intercontinental Championship reign that he drops the title. I'm expecting a long championship reign here. They've just had a grueling long tournament that took several weeks of television. For AJ to drop it straight away from Matt Riddle doesn't make any sense. I know that Vince McMahon sees a lot in Matt Riddle, and I'd be stunned, to be honest, this soon. My other point, I'd be stunned to see this soon for Matt Riddle to win the Intercontinental Championship so soon into his run on SmackDown. As I mentioned, we know that Vince McMahon sees a lot in Matt Riddle. He thinks he has a lot of potential, which is good to hear, because my biggest concern coming in to Matt Riddle going to the main roster was that Vince McMahon wouldn't get Matt Riddle. That's the problem a lot of time with these superstars that come in from NXT to either Raw or SmackDown is, I don't know if Vince McMahon pays a lot of attention to NXT. I think he does more so now that it's on the USA Network, but regardless, his main focus is on Raw and SmackDown. I think his attention certainly is on NXT a little bit more when they're losing to AEW. NXT have turned the tide a little bit when it comes to that. They're a lot closer in the ratings to AEW now. But when a lot of superstars, when they come to Raw or SmackDown from NXT, it's kind of like Vince McMahon says, you know what, that gimmick you were doing in NXT or your character you were doing in NXT, it doesn't fly with me on the main roster. I have to Vince McMahon it. Everything has to be my own creation. I have to make everything. I'm the guy that is in charge here. If it's not my creation, I don't like it. That's why even the littlest things, when they get to Raw or SmackDown, they have to be changed. You remember Aleister Black? This is a perfect example of it, and it's such an unnecessary change. Aleister Black, he's awesome on NXT. He's his killer, he's Destroyer, he is the Dark Destroyer. He has his cool entrance when he comes up a bit like the coffin. When he comes to Raw, a couple of weeks in, he does the rise up, but he's got to have a creaky coffin noise, right? Because he's coming out of a coffin, because he's a horror character, so it sounds like a coffin. It's creaky. Do you get it? It's little things like that I don't get. I don't get how that adds to Aleister Black's entrance. I don't get how that adds to his character. It's a Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn-ism that they need to tweak it because it's not their creation. This isn't them. They have to change it slightly. And that's exactly what it is. Ricochet in NXT was great. He had great matches. He didn't do a lot of talking on the mic, which was good because I don't want to sound horrible, but his mic skills suck. They are bad. He has to really improve on that. But it worked in NXT because they extenuated his positives, hid his negatives, didn't have him doing all this promo work, just cool matches, high-flying stuff that was great. They come to Raw, and he's a superhero. He has to be a superhero. I flip around, so I'm a real-life superhero. And then another thing, right? You couldn't just have the Ricochet entrance from NXT. You had to have a gunshot or a bullet ricocheting around. Get it? Because his name's Ricochet, right? You got that one on the nose, didn't you, Kevin Dunn? It's that kind of thing, right? So whenever they get, my point being, whenever an NXT superstar gets to the main roster, they have to be tweaked, they have to be changed. And that was my worry about Matt Riddle, is that his character is so original and is so unique. One, I was worried that Vince McMahon isn't going to get him, or just get the whole bro, no shoes, flip-flops character, fist bump thing. I didn't think he was going to get that. Historically, he hasn't got that. Look at someone like RVD. I'm not saying that RVD and Matt Riddle are the same character, but RVD did all these cool moves and could cut a promo in ECW, and then he comes to WWE and he just says, bro, whatever, you know. And even he's gone on record to say, I'm more than that, and RVD was more than that. And I said for ages that Vince McMahon didn't get his character, and I got a bit of criticism about that. Some people said, how could you say that? He's a former WWE champion, blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, but RVD should have been WWE champion in like 2002. It took him to 2006 for that to happen. It took RVD like 5 years to win Vince McMahon over when it shouldn't have been the case. So the fact that Vince McMahon sees a lot of promise in Matt Riddle is very encouraging. And I mentioned this a few weeks ago. I don't understand this comparison at all, by the way, but I guess it's a good thing. There was a report that said Vince McMahon sees Matt Riddle as a young Shawn Michaels, or compares him to a young Shawn Michaels. Great comparison. The only thing I can think that Vince McMahon would say that for is that they look a little bit alike and they both had long hair. And then Shawn Michaels has no hair now, bald, which is still shocking. But I don't see that. I really don't see that comparison. They are completely different characters. Their work in the ring is completely different. I mean, you couldn't have two more different people than Matt Riddle and the born-again Christian in Shawn Michaels. Super kick versus bro mission. I mean, flip-flop versus wrestling boots and tights and cowboy chaps and cowboy hats and all this sort of stuff. Sexy boy versus original bro. I mean, nowhere near the comparison. They just have long hair and look maybe a little bit alike. But if Vince McMahon thinks that, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That means he's invested in the character and he wants the character to work. We've seen historically that if Vince McMahon is into it and if Vince McMahon is excited about the character, he will push it to the moon and you've got a good chance of success. The only issue is with that is Vince McMahon sometimes when he gets obsessed with a character, he is obsessed with them for a couple of weeks and then he gets bored and then they disappear. Think of Fandango as a great example of that. Can you remember all that Fandango had, beating Chris Jericho in his debut match at WrestleMania, the promos, the vignettes, etc., and then he gets bored and he moves on to something else. So that's just the worry I have now. The first worry was, is Vince McMahon going to get Matt Riddle? He does. Great. Does Vince McMahon like Matt Riddle? He does. Great. He doesn't care about Matt Riddle's heat he has backstage with the likes of Lesnar and Goldberg. Great. If anything, he likes it. Great. Now it's kind of like, how long is Vince McMahon going to be interested in Matt Riddle for? That's an important thing to consider here, and hopefully it's a thing going forward. As I mentioned, I don't expect Matt Riddle to win this one tonight because I just don't think AJ Styles is going to lose a title this quickly into his run, and I don't think Matt Riddle is going to win a title this close, or this soon into his run on SmackDown, rather. We're going to have a King Corbin interference, of course, aren't we? They've started that feud, was it last week or a couple of weeks ago, when Matt Riddle came out and spoke about his feet. That promo was just... Man, it was awful. I can't really say much more about it. I really didn't like it. And I know some people were like, it's just a Matt Riddle character. No, it's not. You've seen Matt Riddle from NXT. He wasn't saying, my feet, I wear flip-flops because I got frostbitten once. I go to Wisconsin on holiday and I still don't wear flip-flops. Why are you focusing on his feet so much? It was such a weird thing. Yeah, Matt Riddle, look, he doesn't have shoes. Shouldn't the most thing you're focusing on is the personality and the matches rather than his feet and his tootsies? That was the line in it, my tootsies. I mean, geesh. That's that creative team spark, right? That's the creative team that Bruce Pritchard, they've streamlined that. That's streamlined writing. That's the kind of goal that they've got from streamlining their creative process. But I'm excited about the match. It will be a really good match, so I'm very excited about that. As I mentioned, I'm pretty sure King Corbin's going to interfere in this. The King Corbin-Matt Riddle feud has been planned for a very long time. If you go back to Survivor Series last year, King Corbin was the one to eliminate Matt Riddle from Team NXT in the Raw vs. SmackDown vs. NXT traditional Survivor Series tag team match. He was the one to also eliminate him from the Royal Rumble in January. So the plan has been there for a long time. I mentioned here on the channel about the report that Gary Cassidy did of Sportskeeda that King Corbin wasn't exactly thrilled to be working with Matt Riddle initially. He had reservations. He thought Matt Riddle should work with 5 enhancement talents before working with King Corbin, which is ludicrous. I don't want to wait 5 weeks or 6 weeks for a Matt Riddle-King Corbin feud. I don't want to see it anyway. So who King Corbin thinks he is to have that? I mean, everyone, I think, universally groaned when they went, Matt Riddle's first feud on the main roster is King Corbin, and everyone went, oh, great, great. What we're going to have now? We've seen dog costumes, we've seen dog food with King Corbin. What else have we seen? We've seen him attempt to murder poor Elias by throwing him off a balcony. We saw him feud with Otis because Otis took his crown and called him a Burger King. So what's this going to be now with Matt Riddle? I don't know. Is King Corbin going to steal his flip-flops or steal his hat? I mean, honestly, it is going to be something like that, isn't it? It's going to be... Actually, thinking out loud now, they've spoken about Matt Riddle's feet too much in that promo for them not to do something. It's going to be something about his feet. He's going to attack his toes, isn't he? Or something like that. or attack his toes with his royal scepter. I'm worried now because I think that actually might happen. That is definitely going to happen, isn't it? Oh no. But yeah, really excited about the match tonight between AJ Styles and Matt Riddle. I think it's going to be a show stealer. I would hope it's the main event, but it might not be. We had an IC Championship match, was it last week, between AJ Styles and Drew Gulak? That was actually the middle of the show, or was that a couple of weeks ago? Man, they all merge into one, don't they? No, it wasn't last week because the main event was Nakamura and Cesaro versus the New Day, wasn't it? So that was a couple of weeks ago between AJ Styles and Drew Gulak. Good match, that as well, and no doubt this will be a good match too. As I mentioned, I think King Corbin interferes, so Matt Riddle doesn't win this one. As far as AJ Styles, what happens with him next, I don't know, because it doesn't look like Daniel Bryan is going to be in the Performance Center anytime soon. He's got a new child on the way. Brie Bella is heavily pregnant at the moment. He's obviously got a child at home as well with Birdie. He's one of those people that has been staying at home. He hasn't been in the Performance Center for 2 weeks. He shared a ring with Renee Young, who then subsequently tested positive for COVID. So I'm assuming he's isolating at home. I don't want to speculate whether he has it or not or anything like that. I would assume he's just playing safe. So we could see Daniel Bryan this week on SmackDown. I don't know. I think he would just err on the side of caution. With these sort of things, I would throw him in the category with the likes of Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Roman Reigns, who seem very rational people, and they don't need WWE. They don't need the money. If Daniel Bryan wants to stay at home, he's going to stay at home. If he's going to do what he thinks is right. So I don't know about the update for Daniel Bryan with his status. If he's going to be away, look, they can't have AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan feud over Zoom going forward, so maybe AJ Styles moves on and continues to feud with Drew Gulak. I wouldn't mind seeing that, but they've already done the match, which is difficult, so maybe AJ Styles has to move on to a different opponent. We'll have to wait and see on that. I'd like to see AJ Styles versus Jeff Hardy feud over the title after this Jeff Hardy-Sheamus horrific feud is over, so hopefully that ends at Extreme Rules if they have a Jeff Hardy-Sheamus match at Extreme Rules. They've got that bar fight, haven't they, which is... less said about that, the better. I'm almost convincing myself out of watching SmackDown doing this video because some of the bad creative that's going on this show. Bar fights, Tootsies, Burger Kings. I mean, I am convincing myself out of watching it. But I'll watch it. I will put myself through the torture of watching it. But what will you be watching Friday Night SmackDown tonight? What are your thoughts on the AJ Styles versus Matt Riddle match? Who do you think is going to win? Do you think we're going to see AJ Styles retain? Or is Matt Riddle going to be the new Intercontinental Champion? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond to all of your comments. I really enjoy interacting with all of you in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Wrestle News 365 also. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. We're on our road to 500 subscribers, on the long road to 1,000 subscribers. As I keep mentioning, once we get to 1,000, it's a lot easier for us to do live streams and watch-alongs and live reviews. That is the plan. Once we get to 1,000 subscribers, we'll be doing live watch-alongs of Raw, NXT, AEW, SmackDown, Impact, you name it, we'll be doing it. So the quicker we get there, the better. I really appreciate everyone that has subscribed so far. The amount of growth we've seen on the channel in the last couple of weeks has been insane. So fingers crossed it continues. I really enjoy it. I hope you enjoy all the content we put out here, and I really appreciate everyone interacting with the channel. It's really, really exciting. Be sure to follow us also on all of our social media platforms. They're on the screen right now. It's at 365Wrestle on Twitter and at WrestleNews365 on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.